with 𝐩𝐨𝐿, who is the founder of the CEO Confidant. After many years traveling the globe doing B2B sales, Angel jumped out on his own to start helping CEOs personally and professionally with their processes and strategies after seeing a need with working so many in his corporate career. He is also the founder of Wisdom for Kids, which is a charitable foundation that helps underprivileged kids in South America. We had a wide-ranging conversation. Angel is very passionate about helping businesses. Small to medium is his particular niche where he really helps those CEOs elevate themselves and their company to the next level. So I hope you enjoy this conversation. All right, I've got 𝐩𝐨𝐿 on Grind.Sell.Elevate. Angel, how are you?
I'm extremely well. Thank you for having me here, and thank you to everybody listening, Tyzer.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, you've got a ton of experience in a lot of different areas. You've lived in a lot of places. You speak 5 languages, very impressive. Come from one of my favorite cities in the world. I've been to Barcelona, but I don't want to be the spoiler. I want you to give a little context and background about who you are and what you do, and kind of how you got to where you're at.
Yeah, thank you. I would say that one of the questions I've asked myself throughout my entire life has been a very simple question, which actually it was the question I decided to make the motto for 2020. It has only 2 words, and it's why not? Why not? So throughout my entire life, I was the son of, a family of 4, like lower middle class in Spain, blah, blah, blah. But my mom and dad said, you have to learn foreign languages. You have to learn French and you have to learn English. So after high school, I was able to fluently speak English and French and go to any country speaking those languages and being able to defend myself, right? So that started definitely, that defined myself. So fast forward, I ended up here in Plano, Texas, north of Dallas. And what I do for a living, so people know me because of 2 reasons, mainly for 2 reasons, besides being online all the time, is number 1, because I help both corporate CEOs and established entrepreneurs to bridge the gap globally for expansion and exposure. That means that I help them to accelerate the growth of their businesses through different strategies and tactics related to business acceleration, or acceleration of their growth of their companies. And I'm also known because at the same time I started my own business 4 years ago when I left corporate America. I started a foundation. It's called Wisdom for Kids. And what we do is we help underprivileged kids in Latin America, to become entrepreneurs using the local resources. And that I started because I lived in Latin America for many years. So I saw the poverty there. And I said, hey, if I'm not doing it, who's going to do it? Why not? Why not doing it? If it's not me, who's going to do it? Who's going to help out those kids? You have kids. I have kids. Many of us have kids. And who wouldn't like to leave behind a much better world than the world that we found? That's why I started it.
Yeah, no, it's beautiful. I think that there's a lot to be said for what you're doing. A lot of people are always like, yeah, there's this issue. Hopefully someone takes care of it, instead of realizing like, well, shit, that person could be me. I could step up. I wanted to get your take. I know you're from Spain. We just talked about you live here in the States. So why Latin America? I mean, there's lots of places in the world, right, that have poverty. People don't get right education, right type of food, water. So why there?
Yeah. Number 1 is because I was working for an American company in London. And I was sent to Boston to take a sales boot camp in 2001. And I was reading a book, literally. A friend of mine in London gave me a book, and I was reading that book. It's called The Celestine's Prophecy. If you have not read it, it's a powerful book, The Celestine Prophecy by James Redfield. And I finished reading the book after a few days of vacation I took after my sales boot camp. And at that time, I was in Latin America in vacation after that sales boot camp. And I said, oh my God, there must be a reason why this amazing, beautiful book that I've enjoyed so much to read, I'm reading it in Latin America. So I think I have to come here. So I went back to London. I asked my managers, can you please send me to one of your offices in Latin America? Could you send me to one of your offices? Obviously, being a Spaniard, there's this cultural affinity between Latin America and Spain. So I ended up working in Mexico. Only after three months later, I was already in Mexico City, running the company office there in Mexico City. And doing business with Central America and Mexico. And that was the starting point in which I started to be seeing, encountering, living with poverty around me every single time I was going to visit a client. Every single time I had to serve one of my clients to close a specific deal for the company I was working with, every single time I was going to a manufacturing plant that was in the outskirts of a city or in a rural area. And guess what? Every single time I was parking my car there were people, there were kids saying, hey, could we wash your windshield? Could we keep your car safe? Would you buy some gum from us? Would you buy a bottle of water, whatever that was? So in a matter of minutes, I was like outside those places, meeting with all those people living in poverty, those children living in poverty. And in a few minutes, I was inside a manufacturing plant, talking to the CEO, who was probably one of the most influential person in the area. So I would see this contrast every single time. So I became so sensitive about, how in a matter of minutes or seconds you can be with extremely wealthy and powerful and influential people, and you can be with completely underprivileged, no drinking water, no basic needs fulfilled kind of children. And that's why when I left corporate America, I said, I have to do something about it. Because if it's not me, who's going to do it?
Right. No, it's a wonderful motto. And so what has the foundation been doing to help? Or is there anything that if somebody listened to this and say, hey, yes, I see a need, how can I help or how can I be a part of this?
Absolutely. Yeah. You can go to wisdomforkids.today. That's the website, wisdomforkids.today. Basically what we do, and I love to do that, we teach entrepreneurship to kids in a very unconventional way, okay? Because I think that we have to use new ways to inspire children, and to inspire people every time we can. So we actually developed a workshop in which instead of using a whiteboard to teach kids, this is what you have to do, and this is step 1 and 2 and 3. It's a workshop. It took to us almost 2 years to develop it because we have 3 different age groups to make sure that we engage with the kids and the kids engage with us. So we connect with them at an energy level. Like we start the workshop literally dancing. We put a very powerful music and we start dancing. And the kids don't know me, don't know the volunteers, don't know anything about us. But guess what? They are kids. So what do? They start jumping up and down much more than us. They love it. Yeah. And then you see their smiles in their faces. That's who kids are. They might be, living in a I don't know, in a hut, or they actually have to deal with dirt. They don't have drinking water. But when they get to the place where we gather them and we start having this, jumping up and down in a song, they become who they are. They have no masks in the sense that they don't have to pretend to be someone that they are not, because children are genuine. Yeah. We still have not been able to, we still haven't been able to how to say this without using the word screw up their lives, right? As society, right? So they're still genuine. They really want to have, a joyful life. So we connect at that level in the very beginning of a workshop. And from there, we dance, we play games, we sing together. And we even meditate. We use neuro-linguistic programming very, very, very specifically because we really want to make a difference. This is the starting point of our journey with the kids, which is making sure that they understand that they are worth much more than what they think, that we help them increase their self-esteem, and that whatever they do in their lives, it's going to be all right. They need this reinforcement that regardless of where they are, regardless of what their status is, regardless if they are being tutored by someone, they are in a foster home, or they don't have a parent, maybe, whatever their situation is, whatever the circumstances, they still have a clean slate in life. They can achieve anything. They can do anything. And that's what we focus on the first stages of our journey for the kids, making sure that they know and they realize that they can do so much more and they can become whoever they want to.
Yeah, it's wonderful. I think probably, I mean, it's wonderful that you're doing that for children that are underprivileged, but man, that sounds like most kids need to hear that message. I know it's something I've talked about on the podcast before, that I'm really conscientious, and so is my wife, with wanting to make sure that we empower our children, to let them know that there aren't limitations. I actually had a guest on a couple of weeks ago that he specializes in helping salespeople using NLP. So I'm a little bit familiar now. But it seems like it's a super powerful tool. And if you can start to reconstruct or rewire their brains at an early age to see that there's no limitation, because so many, as you know, and I'm sure that's some of the things you probably help CEOs with, even people that are at the highest levels of business, they still have self-limiting beliefs.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. We all have limiting beliefs. It's just the nature of the beast, right? That's who we are. And then if you follow, I mean, you are blessed enough. I still remember a conversation on a podcast, an interview, that someone asked me, so what would you recommend this specific CEO? And they gave me a specific example, right? And I said, having kids as soon as possible. That was my answer. Having kids as soon as possible. Because when you have kids and you really devote time to your kids, you are completely into a different position. You are completely into a different mindset, right? Because, they are your jewel, right? They're your treasure. You want them to be brave. You want them to be able to, to live in a world by themselves. They want them not to take anything by the face value, but they make their own research. They want to, that's all the things, all those beliefs that we have, and we try to do the best with our kids, right? That's who we are as parents. But I really believe two things. They might be a little bit unconventional or disruptive, but I'm still going to say those two things, Tyzer.
Sure.
Number one, I think that the children pick their parents. I really think so.
Okay.
I think that kids pick their parents. And second, I think that also the parents have to learn a lot of lessons from the kids that we have.
Yep.
I really think so. So I think it's a two-way street.
Mm-hmm.
I really think it's a two-way street. So when we have in front of us the responsibility and the duty of raising kids, we actually have to think about so many things, and we have to sacrifice so many things, and we have to think out of the box. So how am I going to support my kids in a way in which they feel loved and secure, but at the same time, I don't want them to say yes to everything. I don't want to take anything and say yes because someone else said it. No, I want you to take your own decisions. I don't want you to go down the route of drugs. I don't want you to. It's up to you. You decide what the route is that you want to take in your life. I want you to be happy, right? But you have to decide what happy is for you. So all those things, oh my God, we are mentoring our kids and we don't have a manual.
No.
Right? And we don't, if we ever lived before, we don't remember whatever the experience was if we lived before in another incarnation, whatever it is, the beliefs that everybody has. So what I'm trying to say is that, okay, we loved our partners, we had kids with them, right? But now we have the real thing here, which is kids that have to be raised the best possible way, right? The best possible way. So I believe that this is just an example of very obvious, and that's why it's so important to really live close by. And that's one of the reasons I left corporate America, to make sure that I was with my kids and I was able to spend a lot of time with my kids and learn from them, really literally learn from them, and not tell them that you have to do this and this and this, but, learn from them and being able to just live the life with them, just be on every single circumstance that life brings to us to learn together. That's what we have to do. And right now, as you know, this year has been extremely challenging for the families as a whole, right? For the kids and going back to school and all these things, have been complicated, but still, we are there to be their example. We are there to lead them. That's why it's so important. Yes, so to your question, absolutely, we all have limiting beliefs, no matter where we are. And you don't know the circumstances behind a CEO being a CEO of a large corporation. You don't know how he reached that place or she reached that place, right? We don't know how they did it. Obviously, they all have limiting beliefs. And most of them actually, obviously, they look for help, and they will look for an outside pair of eyes that can help them in their journey, whatever their journey is.
Right. And so that's where you come in as the CEO confidant, right? To try to help to reconstruct, help them to grow their business, grow their skill set, grow their minds. So basically, you're a CEO coach. Now, do you see a common? I like this analogy of looking at or the constructs. I just read the book Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. I'm not sure if you've read that, but fantastic book. And do you see a common thread or theme among CEOs of companies? Is that there's something that the way that they were raised, or that they have, because I think people would be like, man, how do these people get to the top of an organization, right? Like what do they have that I don't, that gets them to the top to run their own, to either one, start their own company, or two, if you work for a big company, to get to the top of the company, someone like a Jack Welch, right? Like, how do you get to run a huge company like that?
It's the questions that they ask themselves. It's the questions. I mean, no doubt about it. It's the questions. It's like, how do you, instead of asking what if, it's how do I, or how can we? Okay, so the first thing would be, how do I? How can I do this? How can I do this? Instead of can I do this, is how can I do it? So it's like the why not attitude. It's like, I really, if I really want to provide this product or this service, with this product or this service to a particular audience, how can I do that in a unique way that it just had the idea of serving with, So how do I do it? How can I do it? And be relentless, taking something that I use very, very, very often with my coaching and consulting business, which is take imperfect action now. Take imperfect action now. In the entrepreneurial world, the startup world, there's something called the minimum viable product. So when you launch a business, you try to come up with a specific offer that you're going to be trying to proof test in the market. So these people consistently go to the market with a very, open set of eyes and ears to listen what the people are going to say about their ideas immediately. So they don't wait they start taking action immediately. And they ask, how can I do this? 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 And second, I think that they are much more smart in using the resources. Okay, we have been brought up, and that's something I'm fighting for with my own kids' education, which is collaboration. Collaboration. In the again, as much as we can serve and we want to serve humanity, right, through our shows and through our interviews and everything, I think that we are raised to be competitive. We are raised with a mindset of scarcity, to be honest, with all due respect to everybody.
Sure.
Okay. With a mindset of, for me to have, I actually have to subtract or have to steal or have to take away from someone else. And I think this is wrong. I see the world, and I think that CEOs see the world as an arena in which the wealth is there. The wealth is in that arena. The thing is, how can I use all my resources? How can I use all my connections, all my business partners, all my business acquaintances, or even personal acquaintances to start a specific business? So they see the world in a different way. They see the world that they have a lot of resources available, and they keep on looking and reaching out to those resources to build up value for what they offer to the market. That's why summarizing in two questions, right, is how do I do that instead of can I? How do I do that, and who can help me do this? How can I go from where I am today to where I want to go? And let me give you an example.
Sure.
I was having a conversation with the director of the business accelerator of the Babson College. Babson College is one of the top universities in the country. They rank number one. Their entrepreneurial program ranks number one consistently every single year. Those university rankings, the Babson College in Massachusetts. Okay, so I was having a conversation, and she was telling me, that was already like 4 years ago, I think. And she was telling me, right now, with 10, 15 grand, you can set up the foundation of a very strong, even global startup that will change the world forever. 5 or 6 years prior, you would need literally $150,000, $250,000, $300,000 to get off the ground with anything. So I'm just trying to tell everybody listening to us today is that they already have the knowledge and the experience really to launch one of those disrupting, ventures that they always wanted to do. They just have to come into terms with themselves and say, hey, I want to do it. So these people out there that they ask the right questions are not that far away from a mindset perspective from us. The difference is that they take action, and they take imperfect action immediately, no matter what. No matter what. Obviously, those CEOs, they still have to go to the principal's office, like they have to go to the board.
Right.
Obviously, because they have to make sure that they are giving back. Obviously, the shareholder value has to be there, and he's accountable to the board and everything. But still, he's still the visible head of the company. And then the other challenge is, how do I make sure that everybody in my organization is fully aware of the business of the consequences of their business decisions, right? And then there's another set of skills, which is how to lead my company. What's the best way that I can keep on growing those systems, those processes, and these people that are working with me to make this, a large corporation, if that's what I want to do.
I want to stay on that, taking the imperfect action, because, man, there's so much to be said for that. Because so many people, they feel like, I made a whole video a couple months ago how perfectionism is the enemy of money, right? Because so many people get so caught up. I got to have my T's crossed, my I's dotted. I got to do all of my research. I got to have a 60-page business plan with everything spilled out. I got to read all the books. I got $10 seminars, and then maybe I can start. And I've not been that way. I've more like, even when I started this podcast, I'll be honest with you, Angel, I started this podcast. I literally got on and I just started talking. And I told my wife, and she's like, well, like, how do you know what you're doing? I go, I fucking don't. Like, I don't know,
Awesome.
I'm just going to start it, and I'm going to see where it goes. I'm going to figure this shit out as I go. So it's wonderful that you're talking about that, because so many people don't. Now, why do you think that mindset is different with the CEO versus someone who would want to be a CEO, or someone who aspires? Well, what holds them back from just going for it?
Well, because they don't have the certainty that they're going to succeed, and they expect social proof, and they have to take risks. One of the CEOs, it's like, I always say, I've been in business development and sales for my entire life, and obviously this is a podcast that resonates with this message a lot, right? So, but I always say the same thing. If I was hired tomorrow by a large multi-billion-dollar software corporation or any other corporation, and I had to have my first sales call the day after, I wouldn't be afraid. I wouldn't be afraid. You know why? Because as far as I know the benefits, as far as I know what I can provide and what kind of issues I can help my clients to solve, I don't need anything else. I really don't need anything else. Am I going to make mistakes? Oh my God, of course. But probably I will be with someone else in that call, right? So what I'm trying to say is that we already have everything that we need inside of us. But we are afraid of making a step that, people are going to be laughing at us, or we're going to make a big mistake, or, and then we will never be able to recover. So these CEOs, they already have the certainty. I do have the certainty. I have the certainty that I have a safety net. And I'm not talking about financially. I'm talking about that regardless of what I do, I will never be able to screw it up so much that particular sales call, counterpart will never call me back again.
Right.
Because of who I am. I'm respectful. My mom and dad, invested a lot of time in me and being, good manners. I am loving and caring. I don't curse that much. Okay. So, at the end of the day, it's going to be me in front of another human being. So I have the certainty that regardless of what I do, it's going to be all right. You mentioned about what you did in your first podcast episode ever. Let me tell you what I did on my first video ever online. For no reason, I thought that I had to come clear with the world. For no reason. It was 2016, and I said, okay, I'm going to tell the world who am I and what am I standing up for. And I click go live on Facebook. My video has to be there, and probably on YouTube as well. And I just explained who I was, what I was doing, and why I had founded, Wisdom for Kids, blah, blah, blah. when I hit stop broadcasting on Facebook, I started to cry like a baby.
Oh.
Like a baby. Like, oh my God, what a stress. Thousands of people, well, I mean, it was pretty pretentious, right? Thousands of people are going to watch this video. It's out there. Anybody can see, and they will see this crazy guy out of the blue saying all those things that made no sense because it was my first video ever. You name it. But it was my first video ever, and I will never forget it. And I just like came into terms with my own life, my new life of entrepreneur, So it was kind of, a trauma in some sense, right? But also it was like a relief.
Sure.
That's probably why I cried. I probably cried of relief of saying, oh, I've done it, right? So it's just, we have been taught security is number one. Don't take any risks. Play safe.
Yep.
Play safe. If you knew, that's a wonderful question that probably you have asked, or you have heard you have asked yourself, or you have heard other people asking themselves is, if you knew that it's impossible for you to fail, what would you do today?
Right.
What would you do today? So as far as you are in peace with that, then there's nothing that you can fail on. Not honestly.
No, I totally agree. I'm going to read this to you. I haven't done this before, but I called one of my friends called me last night, and he's about 10 years younger than me. Awesome. And we were chatting, and I sent him this, he's doing financially, he's doing very well. He's got 6 figures in cash saved. He's killing at his job. And he called me, he goes, hey, my dad told me this, my friends are telling me this. And, I feel like I'm not doing well enough. And, this is kind of where I'm at. And so I texted him this morning. I said, hey, I'm super proud of you. Incredible. You've saved X amount. Know whatever decision you make with anything in life, it's never wrong. This is only an experience.
Exactly.
That was my message to him. I think a lot of people need to hear that like, you can't fuck it up.
No,
you can't. You know what I mean?
No.
So like the idea you have, execute.
Exactly.
Go. Just do it. See what happens. If it doesn't work out, at least you know.
Absolutely.
Right? At least you know.
And I'm having chills. As you're saying it, I'm having chills. Because you know what happened? I did even worse. After shooting my first video ever on YouTube, on Facebook, you know what I did? I took the link and I emailed all my contact list.
That's wonderful. Love it.
Two things happened. Number one, obviously I had the statistics, who opened, who didn't open. I don't remember the statistics now, but I will never forget this answer. Never forget this answer. Someone sent me an email saying, that's the most stupid video I've ever seen. That's the most stupid video I've ever seen. That was probably the first lesson ever. I have had, a budget. I was dealing with budgets on marketing, but that was probably a very interesting marketing lesson for me. Right? Because I said, oh, wonderful. I'm doing something good. If someone is telling me that that's the most stupid video you've ever received. Right? Actually, I think I kept that email but again, so what? Obviously, if I was judgmental, I would have answered to him, have you ever shot a video yourself? Can you please show me how many times have you done this? How do you feel? Why did you do it? What was the outcome? The second thing that happened to me is that the tool I was using to send emails, unfortunately, they blocked me forever. So I actually had to change, this online marketing, tools that you use, that you follow certain path, certain, techniques to send the email. So I sent too many emails. So actually I was blocked for life on that platform, but that's okay. Those were like 2 or 3 lessons learned, and I exposed myself. But at the end of the day, I'm still alive, Tyzer.
Right.
I'm alive. I'm alive. It's like I'm a real person.
You're right. Exactly.
I have survived, and that's 4 or 5 years ago, and my kids have grown, and they're all healthy, and they're all in sanity. They're living in sanity still, regardless of what's going on out in the world. So we're here.
Yeah.
And that experience obviously taught me. Had I not taken that risk, I would have never felt what I felt at that point in time. And I guarantee you, I will never forget those feelings of receiving that email or of saying, stop broadcast on Facebook, ever.
Well, and I think the biggest lesson of you receiving that email is that life went on.
Uh-huh.
You know, nothing happened.
Exactly. So what? I mean, what's the worst thing? That you, I don't know, that you go and you shoot a video live and there's 10,000 people watching and you say something that you shouldn't have said. Why not? Who's telling you that maybe there were 5 people that they have to hear that specific statement? Is that you? It's the same as you with your podcast. How do you know that that thing that someone said or you said on that podcast show that day did not change someone's life forever?
Yeah.
How did you know? That's what you do every single day, Tyzer. You change, you transform people's lives every single day by what you say and what your guests say. And that's the beauty of it. You know, let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah, I've enjoyed that. I love getting the feedback on social media. You know, people, hey, I really took a lot away from this podcast, or this was really meaningful to me. And that always means the world to me. You know, that's why I don't run ads or anything like that on the podcast, because it's about really just serving and giving back. And the whole intention of me starting this was like, hey, my first year out of college, like you, I came from a lower middle class family. I made $34,000 my first year out of college, and I was living in San Diego at the time, which is beautiful, but not cheap, right? And so I would take home I'll never forget this. My first paycheck was for 2 weeks was $750. That's just how much I made. My rent was $600. So I'd have about $70, $75 to get me through the next 2 weeks. And it was fucking hard. But, you know, developing my skills, going all in on myself, taking risk, you know, making some moves, things like that. And then once I got to a point where I had, you know, started making really good money, I was in, and I, you know, got the accolades and that type of stuff. I said, well, how can I start to give back to other salespeople? You know, how can I make a difference in other people's lives? And I feel like you and I both have that kind of that common mission together. And I wanted to ask you a question, because I picked up on something through reading about you and even in this conversation. How much of your spirituality plays into what you do and how you help people?
Well, that's a great question. Number one, I think that you probably heard that when I was explaining it. Just to give you an example, when we were thinking about what's the best workshop we can give, what's the best content for a 2-hour workshop for kids that we might not see again ever in our lives, meditation had to play a role. Meditation had to play a role. So we actually, inside those 2 hours, we have a 20-minute meditation. And that's the most powerful part of the entire 2-hour workshop, is the 20-minute meditation. It's a 20-minute meditation. So that's answering your question. So spirituality plays a key role, because I think that the answers to everything that we want to do or we think we can do is inside of us. And I think that we have to, or that has helped me a lot. You know, it's like explore the interior, go inside yourself.
Right.
So I started in this journey actually reading that book that I told you before, The Celestine Prophecy. I think it's a great book to start for anybody to start in spirituality. So it was then, I mean, I was born in Spain. Everybody in Spain is almost everybody is. Majority of Spaniards are Catholic. I was born Catholic, right? So, I mean, I did everything that a Catholic does up until college. Okay.
Prayer hands, yeah.
Okay. Up until, you know, confirmation, I mean, you name it, everything. I belong even to a professional movement of Catholics, how to live in the professional world as a Catholic, everything. But then, you know, you started to realize that one thing is what you think is good and what you think you should do for this world. And another thing is what, you know, some institutions, you know, unfortunately, or some people in representing some institutions have done. So what I ended up saying is, okay, so I have been blessed of being exposed to Catholicism and to learning all this, and that gave me a path that helped me to go for the first years in my life. I will never forget who I am. I will never forget all these teachings, but I have to open myself as I am opening to other geographies, I'm opening to other CEOs, other companies, other countries, other continents, I have to open to other avenues of knowledge. And that's how I started to, go inside other ways of thinking from a spiritual perspective. So spirituality plays a very important role in my life, very important role. I believe that, it's like sales, we haven't talked about this, but I see myself like sales have a very, literally sales have a very important ingredient, very important spiritual ingredient and an energy related ingredient. I always say that sales is just an exchange of energy. And the way I see generating wealth is the exact same thing. Generating wealth or generating business is the exact same thing. I think it's spiritually based because we are spiritual beings. You mentioned experience, right? I mean, you've probably heard this too before. I think we are spiritual beings having a physical experience, right?
Totally agree.
Exactly. And probably, some people think that we have had many spiritual experiences or many physical experiences, right? Mm-hmm. And I became extremely sensitive about the spiritualism when a TV network in Spain hired me to expand their business internationally by doing interviews, interestingly enough. And their target audience was people open for different avenues of spiritualism. So I started to interview people in the spiritual world. And when you start interviewing people in the spiritual world, you suddenly start being curious and asking yourself more questions. One of the series I remember the most was I did a series, I think it was 12 different episodes, interviewing people that had near-death experiences. Okay, so for someone like me, business-oriented, Catholic, computer engineer is my master's degree. Okay, so I'm kind of very ground to earth. Imagine start being curious about all those things, asking questions. Okay, so tell me your experience, right? Tell me your near-death experience. Well, I mean, after 12 people, I guarantee you there will be some questions that you will start asking yourself, right? And you will start looking for answers. So it's like, take the risk. What can go wrong? What can go? I mean, is there a question that maybe you are not going to ask the right question to a specific, guest that had a spiritual experience or that had a near-death experience? Nothing can go really wrong. Just be there, listen. That's something that we have in common, the hosts, right? We listen a lot. So we know exactly what to ask next, right? We listen, but we really listen. We actively listen. So I was doing that, and that all those different interviews, I even was blessed with interviewing, people like famous people like Les Brown or some Hollywood celebrity and everything. But at the end of the day, you realize we're all human beings. We're all human beings. It doesn't matter if you run a $3 billion corporation or if you are, the front desk, person on the most, smallest business office of that large corporation. It doesn't matter. We're all human beings. We all want to be happy. We all want to raise a family or build some wealth. At the end of the day, we all want the same thing. We're not so different.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And it's great you put it in perspective like that. What a wonderful experience that must have been, getting to interview all those people. That's fascinating. I grew up Catholic as well, Irish Catholic. And so, but my mom's a Reiki master. And she was someone I grew up watching meditate every day. And so I first got exposed to reincarnation and whatnot when I was, 14, 15, start, going and listening to mediums. So I was always been super open-minded, and I love that about my mom was just like, hey, take what you like and leave the rest. Right. That's what you just have to find your own truth and let it resonate within you. But the most important part, doesn't matter what you believe in, as long as you know why you believe in it. And you're open-minded to other people having their own experience, even if it's different from yours. Now that's one of the things I wanted to ask you. So when you're working with the CEOs and you're helping them find maybe some problems within their business or reconstruct their business, do you ever suggest to them, hey, you seem a little stressed out, seem like you got a lot on your plate. Have you ever tried meditating? I mean, do you talk to them a lot about that, or is it just kind of purely just dive in and here's a marketing agenda? This is what we should be doing.
No. Actually, it's funny because eventually my clients ask me. I mean, I start typically with consulting or training, and then they ask me to be their confidants, or they ask me to be their coaches because of that, because of the questions. Because, I really believe that coaching is much more powerful than consulting.
Yeah.
I can share my teachings. I can put my eyes. I can try to analyze on their behalf, or helping, develop business in a particular new geography, expand their business internationally in some place. But at the end of the day, what really helps me, what really moves the needle for them, is that they embrace those teachings, they embrace those lessons, and they become part of their daily life. Mm. Okay, so are they open? Do I suggest that to them? Of course I do. I ask them what they do. Maybe some of them, they do, paragliding, or some of them do, so sure. Obviously everybody has been raised, going back to education. That's why kids are continuously in my life. Like, regardless of what I am, kids are continuously present, because what was that person exposed to? Again, don't be judgmental. Just try to understand people. That's why I think spiritualism helps us understand people, without prejudices, right? Any sort of prejudices, help them, or helps me understand them. When they feel understood, then they open to other possibilities. Yeah. But you have to reach that point. So, I think that CEOs more and more are open to do other things they haven't done before, but they have to see the value. Once they see the value and they see the results, typically their CEOs are very results oriented for obvious reasons, right? Very specific, very clear on what they want to measure, right? So that they can manage properly. Yes, they are open, and more they are open to do that. And well, we are more and more isolated than ever before. 12 months ago, we would meet with many more people, much more often. Right now, unfortunately, there's, things that we cannot do so much, and things that, unfortunately, we have to abide by. And so social interaction becomes more and more, needed. I would say social interaction becomes more needed among everybody in the corporate world. Yeah.
And I really want to hone in on a point that you made, because I think a lot of people might have missed it. But talking about, CEOs are, results, target, goal oriented, right? But you can't ever get to your results, your target, or your goal, whatever you want to call it, unless you have the right habits instilled. And you talked about, what I got from that was the process. And it's making sure that once you have the right habits in place, it'll facilitate the right results. And a lot of people don't take account of their habits, and then they don't get the right results. And so sometimes they may need that 20-minute break of meditation. And I think that's even with children, it's getting them to have to, at a young age, start to be conditioned with the right habits, with the right mindset. And then it opens them up to all kinds of possibilities. And so I just kind of wanted to go back to that. And is that something that you work on a lot with them, is how to structure a day, routine, habits to build strength upon?
I think that's a great question. I would say that people that have reached that level, they already have developed very strong habits, very strong habits. The space that spirituality covers in their lives might be covered by something else. But still, to your point, yes. Obviously, building additional habits takes time. What I typically do is, I think that besides the habits, I don't think that's the main blind spot I see in companies, more than the habits of the CEOs, is more, are they measuring the right things? Are they measuring the right things? And are their employees, their teams, everybody, not only the ones that report directly to them, not only the leadership team in the companies, but everybody, are they really aligned to what he stands for? Yeah. That's the most important thing. Because at the end of the day, as a person, as an individual, as a CEO, that's how much you can do, right? You are one person. So you have to rely on something, and you have to put in place something. So that's why I think that, obviously, I help entrepreneurs, or I help like startup CEOs to go to the next level, changing habits. But once you reach certain point, I help them to manage some conflicts which arise in their families, in their, personal lives, etc. But typically I find blind spots more on how to deal with the rest of the company, with their teams, but all their teams. It doesn't matter if it's a 20 employee company or if it's a, 5,000 employee company. It doesn't matter. The thing is, how do we all together, we start doing this and we start delivering value to our clients consistently? That's the point that we miss consistently, as very often. That's why, again, going back to the kids, how many classes, how many periods do your kids have on collaboration? You tell me, how many?
Yeah, 0.
Collaboration, just in collaboration.
Maybe a little bit in PE. That's about it,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And you are a coach, right? So you understand the power of synergy, you understand the power of passion, of enthusiasm, of having a manager. How important is a manager to your team?
Yeah, no, it's really important.
I mean, it's like he might not be, right, or she might not be maybe, making or throwing the balls, right? But he or she, they are very, very important for the rest of the team. So we cannot just rely on a very small group of people, not just on the leadership team. The thing is, how do we make that every single person in the organization fully aware of the consequences, of the impact of their business decisions? And that's typically what I work the most, helping the business leaders understand and impact that side of their business. Let's make sure that your entire organization is mostly aligned to what needs to be done.
Right.
To eventually provide the shareholder value that your shareholders want, because they invested in you, right? So you are obviously reporting to this board because you are also reporting this value that you have to bring back to the shareholders.
Yeah. The thing that kind of struck me that I don't see often enough in a way that's done correctly is, 𝐩𝐨𝐿, Inc. I'm not sure if you're familiar with 𝐩𝐨.
No.
He has a leadership and consulting firm. He got a great podcast. He was a former Navy SEAL. And he talks about, so a lot of his experience when it comes to leadership consulting is based around this idea of the military works so well because you have all kinds of different ranks, right? But they always have a common mission. And everybody on the team understands what the mission is and how they contribute to it. And so often, like corporations and companies, it doesn't matter the size, just don't fucking get that. They may have some fluffy mission statement out there that 80% of their fucking employees don't even know. But I think that if they really honed in and had a viable mission statement that people knew and people could buy into, and that they could all get on the same page, understand how they're contributing to the mission. It sounds to me that's kind of like what you do. You make the mission evident to people, right, across the entire organization.
Let me tell you something. Not only they have these fancy missions in the main, meeting room or, the front desk, the hallway, whatever, they make their employees to learn it.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
They make their employees to learn it. And sometimes, or unfortunately very often, it's so difficult to learn it. It's so difficult to learn it just because the wording, just because of the message, so I really believe that the number one goal of a mission is that it's engaging for the employees, because they are the ones who are going to be delivering the value to the suppliers, the vendors, the business partners and the clients, right? So if a mission is so complicated that people have to memorize it, it's a wrong mission. Oh my God. I remember, I will never forget that company. The mission was so complicated with so many terms, none of the terms was obvious, was evident, was so difficult to learn. And you still, just saying it, just putting it on the first slide of your corporate presentation to your clients, and then the clients would say, "Oh my God, so many these super duper words, fancy, trendy words, Okay, so how does that 30,000 feet mission help us to have a better business?
Right.
No client asked me that ever. No potential client asked me that ever. But to be honest, I don't know what I would have answered, to be honest. So that's maybe just a piece of advice. Whenever you drive the process of crafting a nice, a mission statement, please make sure that your employees have a lot to say and they really feel comfortable and it's easy to memorize. Because if it's easy to memorize, it means that they will be continuously focusing on that mission when dealing with anybody else outside the corporation, not only inside.
Right, which is the most important part, right? Because we're all trying to get to the common goal, the common objective, whatever that may be, whatever the mission is. You want everybody driving towards that every single day with intention and empathy and love and thoughtfulness, right? I mean, that's what we're trying to do. Is we're trying to serve the other people. Hopefully, that's what we're trying to do. That's what we're trying to do. Angel, a couple more questions for you. Do you have any success habits or any habits you would recommend to entrepreneurs or salespeople? Things that have helped you become successful?
Yeah, we've talked about this before, but it's definitely my mantra because it makes a big difference, immediate big difference in anybody's business, which is, as I said before, take imperfect action now. That's my mantra. Take imperfect action now. That's the first thing. Hey, if right now you have had to pivot in your business, you have had to reinvent yourself, or you're thinking of doing it, just take a step forward, put some additional value in the market, look for potential clients of yours or friends or whoever, and just start working on that additional value that you want to bring to the market. Take that imperfect action now. Don't be afraid of the consequences. Just do it now. Start interacting with your potential audience. As I said before, I see the world. It's funny that your mom was a Reiki master, right? So I see that the world in terms of energy. For me, everything is energy.
You're right. It is. Well, it literally is.
It literally is. Exactly. Yeah. It literally is. So if everything is energy, so there's a relationship between the energy that you use and how you use it. Start using it now. Don't be afraid of anything. If anybody else is judgmental, ask yourself this question. Are they going to pay your bills at the end of the month? Tell me, are they going to pay your mortgage? Are they going to pay your electricity bill? Are they going to pay your water bill? You tell me, are they going to do it? They are not. They are not. So keep going, test whatever you have to test. And, I think that's a great time for pivoting right now. Basically, because as you know, the energy of the planet has changed.
Right.
There has never in history of our lives, right? Regardless of our age, we've never lived in a place in which there's so much fear, ever.
Right. Yeah.
Like it or not, it is what it is. Let's not be, judgmental. It is what it is. There's a lot of fear out there. So there's a lot of consumers, and obviously corporations are also made up of consumers and human beings like you and me, Tyzer, right? So they have changed internally. We have to speak to them. We have to speak to them. We have to tell them that we know where they are. We have to tell them that we think that we know what they want and what we can offer to them might be of help to them. You never know. Again, we don't know if just this statement has changed the life of someone forever. We don't know. And that's why we're here for. We're not making money out of this. We just are having a conversation of two human beings that have had completely different stories and lives and experiences, right? But they happen to be together right now creating something new, because I believe that interviews have a life of its own. Mm-hmm. They are alive. I think that interviews are alive. That's the power of a conversation. They are alive and they adapt even to our audiences, even if you don't have any interaction right now or any feedback from the audience, but you will obviously have it. So and that's the beauty. So take imperfect action now and don't worry about anything else. Open yourself to opportunities. I have a multimillionaire, a friend of mine who made an exit of $850 million. And he always says, the most important thing, just thinking about it, right? He always says, the most important thing in life is to have options available. Options available. just think about this and ask yourself, do you have enough options available today? Yes or no? If the answer is no, do something about it now. Make a phone call. Walk. Ask. Anything. Change the course of your day right now. And you might be changing your life forever.
Love it. That's great advice. Last question for you, Angel. Do you have any a book or two that you recommend or that you gift often besides the one you already referenced?
Yeah, besides the one that you already referenced, I would like to recommend. There's a book of someone that I really, I mean, it's like the ABC of business. Every single business owner in the world should read this book. It's so obvious, but it's so good. It's called The Baker's Dozen. And the author is Neville Joffe. He's originally from South Africa, but he lives in Canada. And his prior book was actually Climbing the Kilimanjaro. That's the kind of guy he is.
Okay.
He climbed the Kilimanjaro. So it's about, the Baker's Dozen is about basically the 12 recipes, the 12 business principles that everybody should be aware of to conduct a proper business. So it basically talks about how to become aware of the financial consequences of every single business decision that you take on your business. And that applies to any business. You can be self-employed or you can be a multi-billion-dollar corporation. That's the first book I would recommend. And the second book I would recommend is from actually a gentleman called Dr. Joe Dispenza. Probably you've heard of him, Dr. Joe Dispenza. Yep. Okay, good. So the book called Supernatural. Supernatural. It's an amazing book. I mean, you can get it also on audiobook. Supernatural by Dr. Joe Dispenza. I think that he brings a lot of light about, who we really are, what are limiting beliefs, and the importance of breaking the habit of being yourself. And I think it explains it great. It's a great book. It's a great read. It takes a while, but it's like so eye-opening. So eye-opening. I've been blessed of even attending some of his courses.
Oh wow.
and events. And what you're going to learn on that book, it's going to blow your mind away, and it's going to help you in your life to understand better who we are as human beings.
Good. Wonderful recommendations. I haven't read the first one. I'm familiar with Supernatural. It's my wife actually, she was doing her a yoga certification a couple years ago, and it was part of her class reading. And so she knows I'm into spiritual books, so I end up picking it up. And I've seen many of his interviews on Aubrey Marcus, and I don't know if he's been on Rogan, but he's done the podcast tour, so you can find a lot of his content out there. It's phenomenal. So great recommendations. And Angel, where can people connect with you at?
Yeah, thank you. The easiest way is to go and send me an email. I respond to 100% of my emails. So it's very easy. The email address is angel, as in heaven, angel, at angelrebo.com. Angel Rebo spelled like R-I-B as in boy, O. Angel at angelrebo.com. And I'm online, very active online. I also respond to every single message online. I'm very active on LinkedIn. I post every single day, both business related and human potential related. So you can find me there, and it will be a pleasure to, if you want to interact with my content, it will be a blessing. Again, I always respond to everything. So thank you for the opportunity to have all your audience, Tyzer, to connect with me.
Yeah, absolutely. I will post all of Angel's contact info in the show notes, so you can reach out to him through email, his site, or on LinkedIn. Sounds like those are great places. I know we chatted a little bit. He's got a great LinkedIn following, and he produces great content like he just mentioned on there. So please do connect with him and absorb his content. Or if you're a CEO and you want to work with Angel, please do that. I know he's helped, literally thousands of people, and his goal is to work with thousands more. Read a little bit about that as well. So some big missions ahead, and I love what you're doing for children. That's something, that mantra this year, save the children, all the stuff that's been happening to them around the world, just in general, that's been exposed. I've donated money to it. So I commend you for what you're doing to help children. Literacy is everything in the world to get them to where they need to be and out of poverty. So thank you. I just want to acknowledge you and say thank you for your work you've done. It's very selfless. And thank you so much for your time today.
Absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity, Tyzer, and thank you everyone listening. It's our time is the most scarce. The only scarce resource we have is time. So I value the opportunity to basically to talk to you today and to have a conversation with Tyzer. Thank you so much.
Thank you.